Hey guys, what's going on? This is your girl Najwa. Welcome back to my channel. So, I oftentimes talk about things that are really close to my heart on this channel. And some people will roll on here because apparently now in this day and age, it's not nice to talk about things like systemic racism or, people being emotionally insensitive towards people of color. People don't like to talk about misogyny. People don't like to talk about, a lot of stuff. We've come into a really, really touchy world. And it seems like people don't operate from compassion as much anymore. And I had to ask myself, looking at what's going on in the U.S. right now with the MAGA cultists, with Donald Trump, and them sort of hanging on to this bone and not really letting it go. I had to ask myself, as someone with an education who really values my education, and being raised up in an environment that really, really saw knowledge as power, especially when you look around the world and there are little girls who can't even go to school because they're busy being, circumcised and lashed, their ankles being lashed because girls aren't supposed to learn, knowledge is power. And I look around and I see so many men suffering. I recently did a video talking about how we need men at the table when it comes to higher education. Men have checked out. They've checked out. And more men than ever in the US are dying from opioid abuse, are unemployed, are not going to university. And I look at these MAGA cultists, I look at these Republicans in the U.S. and all over the world, all over the Western world particularly, with these really, really extremist views. A lot of them are men, and a lot of them are young men, and they've been swayed by this sort of Andrew Tate, hyper masculine. I don't even know. It's weird. It's weird. It's weird. It's not the world that I grew up in. The world that I grew up in viewed men as a very, very important part of society. I wanted to add something in that. When we spoke about we need men at the table for education, I wanted to add another layer of that. We need men at the table when it concerns faith as well. Now, I'm a person of faith. God has always been by my side. My name means secret talk with God. So it just like my relationship with God has always been something that's so important for me. And my family cultivated that. Even though I grew up Muslim and I converted to Catholicism, and I had this whole 10 years of sort of, courting the Unitarian Universalist Church, my relationship with God never changed. It was always something that was so important to me. And I have to believe that having an education and having a spirituality, I look at the men out there who are depressed, sad, angry, addicted, dying deaths of despair. It's not boding well. It's not boding well. And studies show that people who have an education after, a higher education outlet, people who have a faith doctrine generally are more integrated within communities within society. Like, they are more involved in community leadership. They are more energetic when it comes to social justice. They are less depressed. They have less suicidal thoughts. They abuse drugs less. I mean, there's tons of data to show this. And it's like, we need people at the table. So, really quickly, let's just read this article. Generation Z and the Future of Faith in America is what this article is called. It's from the AmericanSurveyCenter.org, and it's from March 24th, 2022. Now, I'm just going to find the statistics in here. Okay. So there's 172 statistics in here, so we definitely can't read all of them. But, so this first one says, let's see here. So, it's like I can't really read everything some things without reading everything. So it says, religious participation has typically been tightly connected to the timeline of important life events, such as getting married and having children. These events and experiences can serve as crucial opportunities for those who have left their childhood faith to reconnect to a religious community. But declining confidence in organized religion and a growing trend of secular relationships and marriages may make these seminal moments less likely to encourage Americans to return. These changes to have considerable personal and societal consequences. They have considerable personal and societal consequences, which we see that it does. You know, to what I was just saying, we see the amount of divisive fear mongering that's happening all the time in politics. It rolls down to the American people. Everybody's stressed. Everybody's got anxiety. Everybody is fearful and scared and violent and aggressive. That stuff in the politics rolls down to people. It's because there is a lack of spiritual fruit. From my standpoint, you know, you can take it or you can leave it, but that's just my opinion. It goes on to say, individually, Americans who report leaving their formative religion report more significant personal hardship than those who were raised and remain religious. This is particularly true for Americans who disaffiliate from more conservative religious traditions. 39% of Americans raised evangelical Protestant but who no longer identify with the religion say they feel lonely or isolated from the people around them most or all of the time. In contrast, only 23% of former Catholics say that. It's daunting. Okay. So I'm skipping down. It says, in terms of identity, Generation Z is the least religious generation yet. More than 1/3, 34% of Generation Z are religiously unaffiliated, a significantly larger proportion than among Millennials, 29%, and Generation Z, 25%. Fewer than 1 in 5, or 18% of BabyBoomers, and only 9% of silent generations are unaffiliated, are religiously unaffiliated. And I gotta say this, I definitely think that our parents and our grandparents, the boomers and the silent generation, are better at handling stress. You know, they're not walking around feeling stressed, isolated, depressed, anxious all the time, because they do have some sense of duty to their families, to their community, to their faith doctrines. It's like we drank the Kool-Aid and then we realized, maybe the Kool-Aid wasn't good for us. It goes on to say, 18% of Gen Z affirmatively identify as either atheist, 9%, or agnostic, 9%. In contrast, fewer than 1 in 10, or 9% of baby boomers and 4% of the silent generation identifies as atheist or agnostic. So, I mean, it goes in further to talking about statistics kind of related to going to worship services, you know, if they had a religion before and they abandoned it and things like that. But I want to look a little bit more closely at the implications, because they're very, very scary. This one was actually interesting to me. You know, people don't like to talk about race these days, but race is a construct that institutional racism came up with. You know, it's like it created these parameters. People have better or worse lives because of these parameters. So it's like, yo, we got to talk about race. I don't like talking in black and white either. My husband's white, you know, and anthropologically, we're just the human race. But society has created these norms. So hey, it's like y'all invented this game. Now we got to play in it. So this says, the uniquely religious upbringing of black Americans. This is, black Americans are unique in their formative religious experiences, but the racial gaps are largest among activities that take place at home. Nearly 7 in 10, or 69% black Americans report they said grace or prayed with their families during meal times at least once a week growing up, an activity far less common among other racial groups. Less than half of white, 42%, Hispanic, 41%, and Asian Americans, 31%, report praying or saying grace with their families during mealtime. It goes on to show that black women are more committed to going to worship services than black men, but it also shows that across other groups, I believe as well. So I wanted to look at some of the implications type stuff. Yep, so listen to this. It says, but it's not only liberals register lower levels of religious participation or membership. They are also less likely to have been raised in a religious tradition. Liberals are nearly twice as likely as conservatives are to say they grew up religiously unaffiliated, 13% versus 7% respectively. They also report engaging in formal and informal religious activities at lower rates, which is nothing wrong with being liberal, you know. But as long as you got your head on straight, like, do you got your head on straight? Are you contributing something of value to society, or are you spilling a bunch of fear-mongering and propaganda and hate back into society? If you are, maybe you do need to go look at that spiritual fruit. So listen to this. Childhood loneliness and religion. The article says, for many young adults, childhood loneliness was not uncommon. 39% of Gen Zers and more than 1/3 or 35% of millennials report they felt lonely at least once a week during their childhoods. Somewhat fewer than Gen Xers, which was 29%, also say they were lonely this often. Baby boomers are much less likely to report have experienced childhood loneliness. Just 17% of baby boomers report having felt lonely as a child once a week or more than often. It goes on to say, for instance, millennials who attended worship services with their families at least once a week are not more likely than those who never attended to say they regularly felt lonely during their childhoods, 38% versus 38%. However, there are notable differences across generations. Baby boomers who never attended worship services with their families are much more likely than those who attended once a week to say they felt lonely growing up, 27% versus 15%. So listen to this. This section is called the personal difficulties that follow disaffiliation. You know, and before this, we didn't read through it, but basically it shows statistics showing a lot of people who were raised in certain religious doctrines disaffiliated, specifically speaking about Gen Z. You know, millennials are a little bit less than Gen Z, but Gen Z at a rate higher than any of the generations before them are just like, hey, I'm done with this. So it says 27% of Americans who were raised religiously but are now unaffiliated say they feel lonely all or most of the time, compared to 17% of those who remained in their childhood religion. So 27% of Americans who were raised religiously, which, you know, people who are religious versus people who are not religious is still the majority in the country. 27% of those people said they feel lonely like all the time, all or most of the time. This is really, really serious. It's like, I get that we're trying to have a more equal secular world, but it's like, are you pushing forward? Are you ramming that bulldozer forward in your atheist or agnostic views? Which my husband's atheist, no offense, but you know, when I look and I see people suffering, I have an inclination to want to help them, and I'm just like, you see the statistics, you feel lonely all the time, you're not happy. There's a reason for that, and there's something that you can change about it. You know, and it doesn't have to manifest itself in traditional religion. You know, my best friend who's also atheist says that music is her religion. Find something that is you're passionate about and that you can share with others and that others can share with you. You don't have to go to a Catholic church, you don't have to go to a mosque, you know, you don't have to be Buddhist, whatever it is, but just find something that connects you to this in here. Stop thinking about with this. Stop focusing on who said on Instagram, on Facebook, on Snapchat. You know, this right here. What are you doing for that? And what are you doing for others? Okay, so just to tie it back, I think that the last paragraph or the last section of the article pretty much ties up everything that I've been ranting about you know, education and religion. It sums it all up pretty well. So let's just read this together. So, I'm not going to read this whole thing. It's really, really long. But it's essentially saying that those who have a faith doctrine, who are faith-based in some sort of religion, and who have an education, participate in groups and hobbies more. They're less isolated and they're participating in their communities more. It's basically what it's saying, and it's showing some statistics to validate that. I'm going to read this last section, and then, we'll wrap up and we'll chat about it in the comments. So it says, the social divide, having both a college education and a religious connection, does not only increase the likelihood of belonging to certain types of local organizations, the combination of a 4-year degree and religious affiliation is also linked to a greater involvement in a variety of social activities. Overall, about 4 in 10, or 39% of Americans, report having attended a social event in their communities in the previous 6 months. Among religious Americans with a college degree, more than half, or 51%, report attending a local social event in the past 6 months. In contrast, fewer than 1 in 3, or 30%, of Americans who are not religious and did not attend college participated in a local social function in the same time frame. So that's like 4 in 10 versus 1 in 3. I mean, it's not that far out, but at the same time, it is significant. It's significant. People are isolating themselves, and it's extremely troubling. Young people, please get off the phone. You have to get off the phone sometime. If you don't want to go to the religion that you were raised in, whether that be an evangelical church, if it be a mosque, if it be a Catholic cathedral, whatever it is, if you don't want to go there, take my advice. Go to the park, okay? Go to the park with some friends. Listen to some music, listen to the birds chirp, bring a picnic, and just connect. Be there with nature. Join a drawing class, okay? Join a engineering drafting class, whatever it might be, whatever your passion is. Go out and get involved. Get off of those phones, guys, because it's leading to nothing but loneliness and depression, and that is reverberating back into society. This is truly not the end of this subject, quite a vast subject, so we will come back and talk about this more. But I want to know what you guys think. Please let me know in the comments. If you're new here, go ahead, hit the like and subscribe button, hit the bell so you know whenever I post a video, and I'll see you next time. Bye guys, take it easy, I'm wishing you wellness, prosperity. I hope that you feel well in your mind, in your body, in your spirit. Take it easy, guys.